4.76 miles, 9 minutes, 7 seconds per mile today, getting out there for a recovery run after the marathon on Sunday. I know for a lot of people it's too soon. I know for pretty much everyone it's too soon. But for me, I don't think this is too soon for me to get back out there. It wasn't a hard run, just getting the legs moving, getting all the blood flowing. For me, this kind of run right after a marathon or 2 or 3 days after a marathon is more of a systems check. How's everything feeling after some days of recovery? How am I feeling mentally? And this is the way that I recover. Everyone recovers in their own way, whether it's eating a bunch of pizza, having a couple of beers, meeting with friends, getting massages. I like to get out there and recover from a run with a run. So that's just the way I do it. I spend a lot of time kind of reflecting, taking in all the support that you guys have been giving me, all the advice that I've been getting, and all the other things that I've just kind of been working on in my head and thinking about how things have gone and thinking about where things are going to go for the future. Also, in the days leading up to today's run, I've been doing foam rolling. I've been doing some stretching. I've been getting back into the regular routine of daily life, carrying and walking with the kids to swim class, going to swim, all the other things that I normally do that I've been doing. I'm continuing to do all those things as well. So I've been keeping the legs moving, even though I haven't been running, keeping things moving, getting everything flowing really well and feeling good about things. So also something that I was able to do is I was able to have kind of one last talk with Coach about this training cycle.
Hi.
Hey, it's Mike Co.
What's up?
How are ya?
Good. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. Feeling fine. I gave her a very detailed kind of race report. She had like a form or kind of a series of questions and things that she wanted me to answer, something that she gives to all her athletes. And so we went over that, talking about how I felt about the day, how I felt about leading up to the day, and kind of where my head's at in terms of progress. And so one of the things that she did mention is that she thinks that I'm not taking in enough protein.
I do think that you're generally a little light on protein.
Mm-hmm, okay.
So when you get into heavier weight lifting or just more frequent, and we're combining that with things like longer distance runs, we need to have higher levels of protein so that we can properly recover from those efforts.
Okay.
But then also build muscle when we need to. Because you're like my age, your late 30s.
Yeah.
You unfortunately are losing muscle at this point.
Okay.
And, putting it on is step one, but making sure you're putting the right things on where you can put it on and combining it with running, which is going to break down muscle no matter what, is going to be your best bet.
And I definitely agree. That's something that I've been thinking that I need to do as well. The other thing that we talked about was kind of what happened on the day, talking about how I felt like both my quads failed at about the same time. And she emphasized that it was windy. And I didn't feel like it was that windy, but she said that it's easy to kind of acclimate yourself to that wind. She, as a spectator being on the sideline of the marathon, definitely said she could feel it and felt fatigued more and more as the day wore on, just standing around and watching the race. So she knows that it definitely affected a lot of people there. And I've heard from a lot of other people, you guys that are commenting to me as well, that you guys went through very similar situations and scenarios on the day. She also agrees with me that definitely went out too fast for the first half of the race. We came in I came in at the half at 1:29.09. I think that the pacers came in a little bit ahead of me or pretty close to me. If anyone was with the 3-hour pace group for the entire time with the Chicago Marathon, leave it in the comments and let me know. I don't know where the 3-hour pace group ultimately ended up. I'm really curious to see how they did. I think Coach saw that they ended right at 3, so their second half would have been a lot slower. And I suspect that's probably correct, but if anyone has any information, if you were with that group the whole time, please let me know. But I think that if I had come in slower at 1:30 or even closer to 1:31, that would have put me in a better position to be able to achieve my goal. The other thing we discussed is there's a very real possibility that even with perfect pacing, I wouldn't have been able to still hit that goal, and I still would have come up short, and that's okay. I think there's been a lot of growth during this training block. There's been a lot of growth during this entire year. I told her that, really, if I had stopped my racing year at June of 2019, 2019 would have been a fantastic success of a running year. And so everything on top of that has all just been gravy. And trying to take that into perspective as we move forward. And I'm feeling very grateful for the just fantastic running year. It has been so many great experiences, so much fantastic growth. So very proud of that. So in terms of the next marathons that we discussed,
Indy's in general a good race to try to PR, but not right after you blew your body up.
Yeah.
CIM, I know it's full. It's an interesting race. So CIM, I do think is far enough away that you could go for it. It's going to be a short build because you're now 7 weeks out.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, if I want to correct the things I want to correct, it's like,
exactly.
It's either I'm doubling down on where I'm at now,
yep,
or I need to actually
go through a whole other 6 months. Yep,
do something about where I think I'm short. And I think that date puts me in a weird middle ground of neither. And so,
I agree. The thing that CIM has going for it is it's rolling. Have you run that race?
I haven't. It's one that I do want to go to, either as a spectator or as a runner at some point. But didn't have it really on my radar.
Yeah, it's point to point. The first 16 miles are very much rolling. So you also need to get on hills, which I know you do when you go to Iowa. Is that right?
Yep.
So that's, that matches really well. The cool part about that, and I was thinking about, like, you did do long runs on the lakefront path, but you did a fair amount of them on rollers. I wonder if you would be better on a rolling course. Because now we're going to be loading the backside and the front side of your body. Yeah. And you can really use the power that you've developed for climbing and harness the descents that you clearly do well. Okay. So just total side note, I think you might do well on a rolling course. The last 10 miles are flat, but it's net downhill, but everyone thinks it's flat and it's super not. Okay. Houston is flat. It also has rollers though, especially in the back 10K. You're on like a highway and you're rolling, but you're able to like make up ground. Okay. The problem with Houston is not necessarily the time of year training in Chicago, but rather that it can be really humid. Oh, right. It can be like 98% humidity and above 70 degrees. But I like the race. I think it can be a really fast race. I think it's a really easy race for your family to get around at. And it's pretty good energy. And so then we were talking about Houston, and she was then thinking, well, what about the Illinois Marathon? That's in April. And I told her I'm going to Boston. And I didn't put on my race plan because I only put like the next couple of races out on there. But I do have on my calendar Boston in 2020. And so she's like, why don't you just run 3 hours there? And I did not think that was something that I wanted to do. I just wanted to qualify for Boston at Boston. And very typical of my coach, she has lots of gut reactions to things. And she goes, that's a weak goal. She didn't snap and say that, but that's how quickly she fired it off. And I was like, what do you mean? Qualifying for Boston at Boston sounds pretty awesome. And she goes, that's way too easy for you. And so she's pushing me to run that harder and to make that a 3 hour next attempt. And so that's a little bit daunting to me because I've heard so much about this course. I've never been there before. I kind of want to take it in as a tourist and enjoy it. But on the other hand, you do want to show up when you get to this race. And so maybe that's something to do. And that's something that she's interested in me trying to do as well. But I'm also at the same time afraid of the course. I'm afraid of Heartbreak Hill. I'm afraid of the way that the long downhill for the first however long of the course has people go out too fast, which is a problem that I tend to have. And so lots of things that I'm worried about the course, but I think that with studying the course a little bit, training for it specifically, I think that it could work. But I still like the Houston idea. I still like the idea of a relatively flat course. I know it's not as flat as Chicago, but I like having the race at that time. It's in January, so it's a little bit closer, a little bit something more immediate that I can work towards, but also give me enough time that I can then put in some changes, see how they affect me, and take another shot at it. So she's worried, though, because she, in her experience, has seen Houston be unseasonably warm, like in the 70s and like extremely humid for that race. But last year, Ben Barrows, I believe, ran the Houston Half Marathon, which is the same day. I believe it's the same day at the same time.
And I think according to his race report, it was 35 degrees with just a slight wind. And so those are conditions I think that I can run in, not all that different from what the Chicago Marathon was. And so we ultimately came up with the plan that maybe we sign up for Houston and Boston. I'm already signed up for. But if it gets to the point where we get there in the week of the marathon, it's unusually hot and unusually humid, coming from Chicago where it's going to be extremely cold and not humid at all. It's going to be extremely dry up here. I won't have enough time to acclimate. Then I just turn that into an easy long run and kind of hang out and just get in a good workout for the day, with the knowledge that in a couple months, in April, I'll have the chance to try to do it again in Boston. But if all systems are go and we have decent weather or weather similar to what we had in Chicago, and we have that down in Houston, then I can certainly go for it at that time. So that's kind of what I got in my mind. I still have to check with my wife. My wife's out of town for work this week. So we have to sit down and talk about if that's going to be a race that fits well in our family schedule. I had to see if that training for another marathon right away is something also that fits within our family schedule and also in my relationship with my wife. So got to check in on those things, make sure that's okay. If I don't get to Houston, I think there's still availability for marathon entries, but if I don't get to Houston, there's still Boston that's always going to be there kind of as the next race. But ultimately, I think I'm done kind of racing at least marathons for 2019. I might hop in a race here and there for fun to join with other people, but nothing that I'm going to really like tune up for. So just stuff to kind of go out and enjoy running. So the rest of 2019 race-wise is going to be a little bit more relaxed, but the intensity is going to turn up relatively soon. As soon as my body's able to do it, I'm ready to get right back out there. Mentally, I don't feel like this is a response to a disappointing result. I think this is drive and fire to keep going and to keep getting better as a runner. So I'm looking forward to that. So ultimately not sure exactly what's coming up next, but I got some ideas. I've been getting a lot of helpful suggestions and offers for assistance in terms of strength training, because admittedly I don't really know anymore how to train weights and strength for long distance running. I remember what I used to do in high school and track, but that was for different distances, different purposes. And I do think that because I went to high school and college so long ago, in other words, at like the turn of the century, that I think a lot of the stuff that I was doing back then is probably considered antiquated, if not detrimental at this point in 2019. So I'm learning. I've been talking with Black Bean Queen, who I've run with a couple of times now, and I've seen at a lot of events. We have very similar time goals. We had very similar races on Sunday, and we have very similar direction for our next races. And so we're going to be trading some notes in terms of what we're going to be doing in the future. And a lot of you guys have been also offering assistance as well. I'm still kind of like getting the lay of the land, trying to figure it out. A lot of you guys who are running form analysis coaches or that is kind of your bailiwick, you guys have been reaching out to me as well, and I think that's all really helpful, and I thank you. I got to kind of figure out what I need to do. I'm going to do some more information gathering, spend this time while I'm recovering still and not running a whole bunch, to do a little bit more of that research and kind of figure out what's next. I might even do some reading. I really rarely read anymore, other than to my kids, but I might have to do some reading, or I might want to do some reading. So that'll be interesting as well. So the future will be interesting. I'm not sure exactly what it holds, but mentally, I'm ready to get right back into it. Physically, I still need a little bit more time. So the running content will continue soon. It'll be still sporadic for a little while, as my body can only handle sporadic running for a little bit. So I appreciate all you guys for making it all the way to the end of this video and for following along for all the weeks, months, and even years that some of you have. So I appreciate you very much. Thank you so much. And I will see you guys soon.
Yo, what's going on?